Welcome back. Well, Jerry is here from Pacific Financial Planners to tell us all about how to save money and make money and do all sorts of things with money. So welcome.
Well, thanks, Lisa. It's a little harder in this environment that we're in. It's been crazy year.
I know, it has been. And you know, it seems so volatile and scary, and people are very unsure and uncertain about what is going to happen the rest of the year. And so I thought maybe we would take this time, number one, to really just learn about you. And you've been in this business a really long time, so maybe you can help us understand, you know, where you came from and why this is important to you.
Sure. You know, I was always interested in money. I don't know why. I guess maybe when I was young, we didn't have much. I don't know how about that. That's the truth. But my parents were investing in real estate when I was young, and it's very interesting watching them, you know, buy properties, basically kind of slumlord stuff back in Michigan. But they kept really good records, and my dad was, you know, kind of a math guy, and he would started to teach me about how you can pencil things out and figure out, you know, calculations of returns based on safe investments, predictable investments. And so I started following the stock market in high school, for some reason, I have no idea why. And when I got to college, I had a chemistry professor, who said that he traded stocks for a living, and he said he'll give me an independent study. It was about like my sophomore or junior year, and I opened up accounts and started trading as a junior in college. And literally, when I graduated, I probably had about $50,000 from student loans that instead of using for tuition, I was able to compound. And everything I learned back then, by the way, Lisa, I don't do any of that stuff today. It was more speculation. But in the end, that was the impetus. And I have an engineering degree, which is kind of how things work. I'm kind of a nerd on that, you know, really am, the engineer, typical stuff. But I applied it towards money and how do these markets work, and try to understand if this, then that. And so, you know, understanding things in the economy and how they might affect people's money. And I felt that I had somewhat of a skill. I'm now 25, 26 years old, and I said, well, how do I do this? How do I help other people understand it with their money? And that's really all I've been about since then, is financial education. I go out, I speak, I did radio for about 20 years. I appreciate, you know, being on this show to educate your clients. You know, we do the financial forum. It's all just straight education. And then what I've found is that a certain number of people figure, you know, I teach them how to do it themselves. If you want to do it yourselves, do it. If you want to go to your own advisor, go take this information, go to your advisor. But then some people just say, hey, can you help me do it for me? And that's how I've been doing my business for 35 years now.
For 35
30 of them here in the village.
Wow. So you know, it's interesting when you come across someone who has been in the industry as long as you have, because you've seen so many variations of what's been going on. I mean, we had the 2008 crash, and then now we've got some very uncertain times. So I imagine that many of your clients come to you in desperation.
Yeah, I mean, they're not clients that come to me. My clients come to me saying thank you, because they know I do a fair amount of communication about what's going on, and I've been able to protect their assets, even this year. We've been able to navigate this. You know, again, there's no such thing. You can't squeeze blood from a rock. When the market goes down 25, 35%, as the S&P and the NASDAQ have respectively, you know, it's hard to, you know, create positive returns, but to not take losses. You know, Warren Buffett, rule number one is don't take big losses. Rule number two is see rule number one. So we've been able to apply that, but other people do come to me, and it's a mess. I mean, I've seen people down 35% and they're retired, and they were counting on that asset to be there to pay their bills. Now they're wondering, should we try to make that up, or should we just try to maintain what we have? You know, and it's a dilemma, because it's on a case-by-case basis. It depends on their lifestyle and a number of factors of what type of path they should go on going forward. So it's an individual situation for everybody depending on your needs. But most of our listeners on a fixed income, you know, they have the money that they're going to have. They're not trying to, you know, get rich in retirement. They're trying to just make sure that they don't run out of money, usually is the number one goal.
Well, correct. And so this kind of brings me to the next thing, is that, you know, there's a period of time where you're safe, and there's a period of time when you do take risks. So, for instance, when you have somebody that is on a fixed income, you know, and they already know what their money is. However, if they're still relying on a 401k, for instance, you know, that money, if you are still heavily invested in things that are aggressive, that would be scary sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, most of the clients, what I see, not clients, but the people that come to me to ask me to review their portfolios, they're too aggressive. They really are. And they don't even want to be. I think a lot of financial advisors, planners don't listen. And yes, there's a need for growth. When you have this kind of inflation, inflate 8-9%, what that means, cost of goods, cost of gasoline, cost of food, cost of everything that you need to live is going up by 8 to 10%. That means $1,000 worth of goods going to cost you $1,100. If you're on a fixed income, that's a lot more cost. So you need maybe a portion of your money for growth if you can, but to be aggressive is probably not a good idea either. So kind of like this environment, the year started off, it was the worst first half of the year since 1972, so 50 years, right? And for the Dow, it's actually 60 years since 1962. So, in most of our lifetimes, that's as bad as it's been in terms of start of the year. But we've had a little bit of a recovery since then. So when you have that kind of recovery, you can go a little bit for growth, but it's got to be the safe type big U.S. companies or large mutual funds that are large U.S. company based in a risky environment. When you are in the environment that we were prior to 2020, let's say the COVID crisis, and things were doing great, that's when you could take a little bit more risk. So there's a season to be safe and a season to be more risky, and we're in the safety season right now.
Okay. Now, one thing I think is interesting is that when people retire, they, from a position that had a 401k plan, they maybe used whatever their company was using, right? Like a T-row or whatever the case might be. So they never really did anything with their money. But then once they retire, is that the time when they need to talk to you, or do they do it beforehand?
Well, it's kind of like a wedding, Lisa. I mean, like, hey, I want to get married. When do you want to get married? Well, this weekend. No, most people, you can plan a wedding for, 6 months to a year, more like a year. You got to get the dress and you got to prepare for it. So when you're planning on retiring, it should, I want to retire in a year, 2 years, 5 years. The earlier you start planning, the better it is, because there's some decisions that you can make that affect things like taxes. And people think about, well, which investment should I choose? Well, how about we look at taxes and see if we could reduce your taxes now or reduce your taxes before you turn 72 so you start taking the RMDs, the required minimum distributions. So the longer you plan ahead, the better it is. But that 401k, to make that switch at some point in time, because I still meet people that are 70s and 80s and still have that 401k, those are designed for younger people to grow their money. That's what it's designed for. Generally, when you retire, you have to make a mental switch from growth to income. You need the income because you don't get the paycheck anymore, right? I mean, most people, they work, they get a check every 2 weeks. So what they want to do is they want to make their portfolio, their investments, pay them as well. So when you invest for growth, you're thinking, I'm going to buy something at $20 and down the road I'll sell it for $30. Great, that's a great idea. But what we demand for our clients is that when we buy something at $20, it pays us dividends and interest this year. We want immediate payback of like 5% income, because we're not getting our paycheck anymore. And so the earlier you start making that plan to switch, the better it is. And some people have never made that switch. And so in the last decade, between, let's say, 2009 and 2020, they were like, wow, this strategy works. And now they're wondering what the heck's going on because it's not working anymore. Again, markets go in those cycles. So.
Exactly. No, and that's important information. Now, if people want to touch base with you, there is a financial forum that you have every month, and it's happening August 30th. It is free to attend in Clubhouse 5, Room 1. And what is this one going to be about, real quick?
Well, again, it's all about safety and income is what we're talking about. How to derive income. The 7 mistakes that people make in retirement. And so, sometimes it's what you should do right, and then sometimes what you shouldn't do wrong. We're the last Tuesday of the month. This has nothing to do with Pacific Financial Planners. This
Right.
is straight financial education,
Right.
and we run it as a group, and the group educates themselves.
Well, right. I remember you talked to us last time where the people sat around and talked about their individual experiences with finances, which is such a great thing because people want to know what other people are doing, what's working, what's not working, and then it isn't just coming from you; it's coming from the people
Other
that are
people.
there.
We're,
Yeah.
what you should do right, what not to do. And,
Right.
and if you have questions, people don't know who to turn to, they want a second opinion, they can ask the group. They'll meet
I love that.
like-minded people.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, and then of course, if people want to get in touch with you personally in terms of financial planning, they can contact you at safeincometoday.com or they can call that number on the screen.
Thank you, Lisa.